Wang Lin looked at the small weasel. He had noticed this creature earlier on Elder Sun Yun from the Cultivation Alliance, and it seemed somewhat familiar. Now, seeing it up close, especially focusing on the third eye in the center of its forehead, Wang Lin couldn't help but be drawn in. The third eye of this weasel seemed to shimmer with a bit of starlight, and gazing into it, one couldn't help but lose themselves. Star-marked weasel. A young star-marked weasel. Wang Lin's eyes narrowed as he recognized the creature's identity. In the memory inheritance of the ancient god 2C, there were records about this weasel. The star-marked weasel was a peculiar creature from the starry skies. When it matured, it could transform into anything in the world, even taking human form with no difficulty. It was one of the best materials for puppet arts. As a juvenile, the weasel had little offensive power, but its speed was beyond imagination. Moreover, it had an insatiable hunger for crystals, and through constant consumption, it would gradually grow over time. In the memories of ancient god 2C, there were many star-marked weasels, and their juvenile cores were often used to craft magical treasures. When an instant teleportation array was inscribed onto them, their speed would reach incredible levels. However, after so many thousands of years, even if these weasels hadn't gone extinct, they had become exceedingly rare. In the ancient times, the star-marked weasel was considered one of the best pets, especially due to its incredible speed, which the ancient gods greatly favored. At the same time, the weasel was also very fond of the aura of the juvenile ancient gods, often approaching without needing to be captured. Being with a juvenile ancient god greatly benefited the star-marked weasel. As the ancient god grew, the weasel would absorb vast amounts of spiritual power, thus accelerating its own growth several times over. The weasel before Wang Lin had a radiant starlight in its third eye. It hadn't yet reached the abyssal veil, so it likely hadn't been around for more than 10,000 years. Feeling a shift in his heart, Wang Lin reached into his storage pouch with his left hand, and immediately, a high-grade spirit stone appeared in his palm. He placed it near the weasel's mouth. The weasel didn't even glance at the spirit stone. Instead, it stared at Wang Lin with a look of confusion in its eyes. In the blink of an eye, it vanished from view and reappeared on Wang Lin's shoulder. Wang Lin stroked his chin thoughtfully. It was clear that the weasel didn't care for the spirit stone. It had kept its gaze fixed on him. Could it have sensed the aura of the ancient god on him? Although there was a faint trace of ancient god's aura on Wang Lin, it was extremely weak. This was the residue from his fusion with his true form, and over time, it would naturally dissipate. The weasel, having followed the aura, seemed disappointed. In its perception, the aura was too weak. Though it didn't know exactly what the aura was, the moment it sensed it, it felt an incredibly pleasant sensation, a feeling it had never encountered before since its birth. Wang Lin put the spirit stone away and then reached into his hand once more. This time, he pulled out a piece of immortal jade. As soon as the immortal jade appeared, purple light flashed, and when Wang Lin glanced at his left hand, the immortal jade had already vanished without a trace. Wang Lin smiled, and once again took out another piece of immortal jade. This time, he focused entirely on it. In a flash of purple light, the weasel appeared above Wang Lin's left hand at an unbelievable speed. It didn't stop at all, but immediately moved its tiny mouth to bite the immortal jade. In an instant, it disappeared again. When the weasel reappeared, it was back on Elder Sun Yun's shoulder, nibbling on the immortal jade while glancing at Wang Lin, particularly eyeing his storage pouch with a few extra, meaningful looks. Elder Sun Yun clearly noticed this, and he gave Wang Lin a slight smile and a nod of acknowledgement. Tian Yunzi, sitting cross-legged on an auspicious cloud, began his Tao lecture. Heavenly techniques, the operation of the ninefold return to origin. I have cultivated Tao for many years, and though I cannot claim to have seen through all divine abilities, I have gained a faint understanding of the origin behind them. Tao cultivation, what does cultivate mean? And what does Tao mean? Condensing qi, establishing foundation, core formation, nascent soul, spirit transformation, infant metamorphosis, ascension. These are the first steps of cultivation. If I were to summarize it, I believe it could all be condensed into the word cultivate. Upon hearing this, Wang Lin immediately focused his attention on Tian Yunzi. His cultivation had always been self-taught, and his techniques were rather disjointed. What he lacked most was profound insights. After ascension, there is the duality of illusion and reality, and the three realms of shattered nirvana. I'm sure some of you are stuck here, unable to make any progress. This is the second step of cultivation. I believe that this second step is the transition between cultivate and Tao. The key is how to fully transition from the spirit of cultivation to the essence of Tao. This second step is the most crucial. Unfortunately, including myself, I have yet to fully comprehend it. It feels as if there is an unseen force interfering with all my realizations, always interrupting my exploration. Tian Yunzi's voice gradually spread across the surroundings as he shared his understanding of Tao cultivation. The surrounding area gradually fell silent. Even Elder Xun'er, who was from the Cultivation Alliance, fell silent, his eyes showing a look of helplessness. Senior Tian Yunzi, what is the third step of cultivation? One of the cultivators in the crowd asked in a deep voice. The man was dressed in black, standing there with a menacing aura enveloping him. Within a Tinjong radius, no other cultivators were present. A fierce energy seemed to swirl around his figure. A deep, jagged scar ran across his face, cutting through his brows and eyes, slanting down towards his neck. Tian Yunzi glanced at the man and said, "This third step is the true essence of the word Tao. To cultivate for countless millennia, solely to seek the Tao. Once this Tao is achieved, one can reach an inconceivable height. But how to cultivate it, I do not know. My Tao is Tian Yun, and when the heavens' will is upon you, all will naturally succeed. However, if the time is not right, it will turn to dust, and countless years of cultivation will be swept away in an instant." The surroundings fell silent once more. Wang Lin's eye showed a hint of contemplation as he carefully pondered Tian Yunzi's words. Tao cultivation is divided into 3 steps. I have yet to even complete the first step, and the path ahead will only grow more difficult and arduous. It is said that cultivating the Tao goes against the heavens, and this is no falsehood. If even Tian Yunzi does not know the third step, then does such a step truly exist in this world? Wang Lin murmured to himself. Tian Yunzi's gaze swept over Wang Lin. At that moment, Wang Lin lifted his head, meeting Tian Yunzi's eyes. It was as though Tian Yunzi had seen through Wang Lin's thoughts. He smiled gently and asked, "Wang Lin, do you have any questions?" As soon as Tian Yunzi's words left his mouth, all the cultivators present turned their attention to Wang Lin. The disciples of the other 6 sects particularly cast curious glances in his direction. To have the sect master personally address you in such a manner was an immense honor in this setting. Wang Lin remained composed, cupping his fists respectfully toward Tian Yunzi. "Master, there is something I do not understand." Tian Yunzi stroked his white beard, nodding and smiling. "Speak, let me hear." "It concerns the word cultivation. We often speak of cultivating immortality, true cultivation, and the Tao. Master, you've only explained the Tao. What of immortality and true cultivation? Do these terms simply exist without explanation?" Tian Yunzi smiled faintly, his eyes showing approval. At that moment, even Elder Sun from the Cultivation Alliance couldn't help but smile, giving Wang Lin a meaningful look. Immortals no longer exist. The term, cultivating immortality, comes from ancient times, when the immortal realm was the sacred ground for cultivators. That's when the term was coined. As for true cultivation, what is true? True is the essence of all things, the ultimate truth. When the immortal realm no longer exists, cultivators are like trees with no roots, wandering without a home. At that point, cultivating immortality lost its meaning. Thus, true cultivation became the foundation of all cultivators, and from there, it became known as cultivating the self. Now, immortality and true cultivation are but remnants of the past. What we now seek is the Tao, but this Tao is not the heavenly Tao. Tian Yunzi's voice slowed, and after this, he paused slightly. The cultivators around them immediately began to murmur uncontrollably. The idea that Tao cultivation was not the same as the heavenly Tao stirred great waves of questions, as this seemed to contradict what Tian Yunzi had said earlier. Doubts rose among the crowd. However, the great divine ability cultivators maintained their composure, their eyes filled with deep understanding. To them, Tian Yunzi's words made perfect sense. However, there were times when such things could not be spoken aloud, for it could lead to trouble. Elder Sun from the Cultivation Alliance furrowed his brow and coughed lightly, glancing at Tian Yunzi. Tian Yunzi smiled gently and said, "The way of Tao is a path, and because I do not know the third step, I am seeking it. This is another interpretation of the way of Tao. Wang Lin, have you found clarity?" Wang Lin's eyes showed a hint of doubt. After a moment of contemplation, he shook his head and said, "Master, I doubt whether the third step truly exists." Tian Yunzi sighed softly, a rare glimmer of reminiscence appearing in his eyes. He spoke slowly. 3,000 years ago, I was just like you, never believing that the third step truly existed in this world, until I met him. Elder Sun, clearly aware of who he was, immediately darkened in expression. His eyes too reflected a mix of nostalgia and fear. The moment those words were spoken, the surrounding cultivators grew eerily silent. Only the great divine ability cultivators' eyes began to shine with an unusual light. Predecessor Tian Yunzi, who is this he? Old friend Tian Yunzi, could you clarify this? Tian Yunzi, what do you mean by this? One after another, voices filled the air, all aimed at the mysterious he mentioned by Tian Yunzi. Enough. Tian Yunzi, do not speak of this anymore. Elder Sun's face was grim, and he spoke in a deep voice. Tian Yunzi gave him a sidelong glance and smiled. Actually, I am grateful. In my time of confusion, he appeared before me. This person has undoubtedly reached the third step. Elder Sun remained silent for a moment, sighed deeply, and waved his hand. Fine, your temper is always so strange. Speak if you must. Tian Yunzi chuckled. For countless years, the Cultivation Alliance has only ever suffered once at this person's hands. This is no big deal. He is the only person in my life to have reached the third step, but unfortunately, he was but a fleeting presence, and has never been heard from again. On this occasion, Tian Yunzi's Tao lecture lasted continuously, but during the lecture, most of the cultivators' attention was focused on the he mentioned by Tian Yunzi. However, Tian Yunzi remained tight-lipped and did not speak about this he. The lecture lasted for 3 days, and after the third day, it came to an end. Wang Lin listened quietly throughout, gradually beginning to understand. After my 10,000 years of life, I will give you all a great opportunity. I will now perform a medium-grade immortal technique. Fellow Taoists, how much you comprehend will depend on you. Tian Yunzi smiled gently and spoke slowly. As soon as Tian Yunzi finished speaking, the people around him immediately focused their minds. Almost everyone, even those cultivators with great divine abilities, some of whom were only slightly weaker than Tian Yunzi, all briefly flashed their gazes and began to observe carefully. Immortal techniques were rare, and medium-grade immortal techniques were even rarer. The reason so many people came to Tian Yunzi's birthday celebration was not just because of his fame and wide network of friends, nor just because of his Tao lecture. It was the performance of an immortal technique after the lecture that truly captivated the hearts of all the cultivators. Wang Lin took a deep breath and fixed his gaze on Tian Yunzi. In his life, he had never seen any immortal techniques. The most advanced techniques he had seen were forbidden arts derived from lower-grade immortal techniques. The power of forbidden arts was already so formidable that Wang Lin couldn't even begin to imagine how powerful immortal jade techniques could be. As all the cultivators focused on Tian Yunzi, waiting for him to perform the medium-grade immortal technique, suddenly, the sound of thunder rumbled from the horizon. Streams of sword light appeared, resembling countless meteors, wildly rushing towards them. The cultivators here, especially the great divine ability cultivators, had already noticed this phenomenon, and now they looked on with indifference. The sword beams in the distance were endless, their numbers beyond imagination. To describe them as covering the sky and blocking the sun would not be an exaggeration. The sword beams let out a constant whistling sound, thundering towards them with a deafening force. Wang Lin had only witnessed such a scene once in his life, and that was in the immortal realm when the white-robed woman in the pagoda awakened and summoned the sword spirit of the second sword of rain, causing the entire immortal realm to be enveloped by swords. Tian Yunzi's expression remained unchanged as he gazed into the distance. At this moment, countless flying swords rushed madly towards them. The cold sword chi seemed like sharp blades charging forward, heading directly for this place. Many cultivators, whose cultivation levels were insufficient, quickly made way, not daring to obstruct their path. A wide passage suddenly opened up among the crowd. Tian Yunzi, you old fool, how could I not come to your birthday banquet? A defiant voice suddenly echoed across the sky. At the same time, the flying swords in the distance swerved rapidly, parting to reveal an old man in blue clothes. This old man's beard and hair were white, and despite the lack of wind, they seemed to move as though affected by some unseen force. Though his body was thin, he exuded an imposing presence, like the might of heaven itself. Particularly striking were the four flickering, illusory sword shadows behind him. Each time the sword shadows flashed, thunder would roar from the void. At his feet was a serpentine treasure sword, emanating a violent aura. The sword's surface had a thick, blood-red color, clearly stained from some unknown ritual performed by sword venerable Ling Tianho, which shocked those who looked at it. Many cultivators around immediately turned pale and stepped back. Wang Lin's eyes were fixed on the serpentine sword. This was the very sword that sword venerable Ling Tianho had snatched away from the immortal realm back then, the second sword of Rang. Sword venerable Ling Tianho. Several cultivators around exclaimed in surprise. On Tianyun's star, sword venerable Ling Tianho, the head of the great Luo sword sect, whose personal cultivation and sect power were second only to Tianyun's sect, had arrived. Sword venerable Ling Tianho's gaunt face displayed a heavy, grim expression. Behind him, countless flying swords filled the sky, emitting a constant buzzing sword hum. Disciples, come forth and pay your respects to Senior Tian Yunzi. Sword venerable Ling Tianho loudly called out. As soon as he spoke, the flying swords behind him began to hum more intensely, and with a series of booming sounds, they transformed into mist. The blue mist spread across the sky, enveloping everything and causing the surrounding world to change color. In the midst of the mist, cold, piercing eyes gradually appeared. Finally, as the mist dispersed, countless disciples, all riding flying swords, emerged behind sword venerable Ling Tianho. These disciples wore black robes, carrying ancient sword sheaths on their backs. Their gazes were like lightning as they stared at Tian Yunzi. At a glance, Wang Lin could see that there were at least 10,000 disciples behind sword venerable Ling Tianho. Haha, many old friends are here. Oh, Elder Sun is also here. Sword venerable Ling Tianho glanced around, finally landing his gaze on Elder Sunday. Elder Sun smiled slightly and said, how could I not attend my old friend Tian Yunzi's birthday banquet? Ling Tianho laughed heartily and turned his gaze to Tian Yunzi, saying, Old Tian, are you not going to welcome me? Tian Yunzi's expression remained calm, and he smiled. All right, you've chosen the perfect time to arrive. I'll use you as the subject for the demonstration of an immortal technique, allowing all the fellow Taoists here to observe. Is that acceptable? Ling Tianho's eyes narrowed, and he smiled. That's exactly what I intended. Tian Yunzi smiled faintly, raised his right hand, and formed a hand seal. He then spoke slowly. Fellow Taoists, the immortal technique I'm about to perform is a medium-grade immortal technique that I accidentally obtained on an abandoned planet. It's called the immortal summoning art. After studying it, I discovered that it was once used by the people of the immortal realm to guide our cultivators to the immortal realm. Once activated, it will draw near a great divine ability. Fellow Taoists, please observe carefully. Sword venerable Ling Tianho let out a cold snort, his eyes gleaming with a chilling light as he stared at Tian Yunzi. Tian Yunzi smiled, forming a hand seal. Immediately, a red beam of light condensed in his hand. As he raised his left hand and formed another seal, the red light blazed brightly. Tian Yunzi's expression remained unchanged. He lightly pointed at the void with both hands. At once, the red glow shot out of his hands, soaring into the sky. Mid-grade immortal summoning art. Tian Yunzi's voice seemed to echo from the void. Suddenly, with a loud rumble, the sky was enveloped in a vast red hue. Within the red, The clouds swirled as if enraged dragons were roaring within, thunder clapping loudly. At the same time, flashes of lightning pierced the clouds, like thousands of silver snakes spreading in all directions. The sky now resembled a sea of violent waves, as an overwhelming celestial force descended silently. Under this celestial force, many cultivators around turned pale, falling from midair and sitting cross-legged to meditate. Wang Lin gazed at the sky, feeling his immortal power becoming chaotic, as though some mysterious force from above was pulling at him, causing his body to tremble uncontrollably. Only the golden immortal power from his left arm, after the third revolution, remained unaffected, calmly circulating. Wang Lin's mind stirred. He immediately released the golden immortal power from his left arm, circulating it throughout his body. He did his best to keep the golden immortal power from mixing with his inherent immortal energy, keeping them separate. After the golden immortal power had circulated once, Wang Lin's trembling slowly eased, and although his face remained pale, he stood upright. As for Bai Wei, she held on a little longer before sighing softly, descending back to the ground to meditate. Among the violet lineage, aside from Wang Lin, only the fourth senior sister remained composed, calmly watching the sky. Apart from these two, most of the ordinary disciples of the violet lineage had already fallen, unable to withstand the force. Not only the violet lineage, but even within the other 6 sects, most ordinary disciples had fallen. Only those with high cultivation could barely stand. However, within the disciples of Tian Yunzi's faction, none had fallen from the sky. They all stood firm, some pale like Wang Lin, but they persevered. After the third cycle of the golden immortal power circulation, Wang Lin's complexion returned to normal. The fourth senior sister turned back and glanced at him meaningfully, but said nothing. Tian Yunzi's gaze remained calm as he raised his right hand, pointing toward Ling Tianho. But then, he slid his finger, and it landed behind Ling Tianho, pointing at the thousands of disciples on flying swords. Venerable Ling Tianho's expression darkened, and he moved forward. Just then, Tian Yunzi smiled slightly, softly speaking, "Guidance." As these words left his mouth, a loud rumble echoed from the clouds in the sky. The entire sky seemed to tear apart, revealing a massive void. Strands of 7-colored light suddenly descended from above, enveloping all the disciples behind Ling Tianho. The disciples of the Great Luo Sword sect immediately lost their previous icy expressions, replaced by confusion. Their bodies, uncontrollably, began to rise into the air, flying toward the source of the 7-colored light. Ling Tianho shouted loudly, and his snake-shaped flying sword shot out like lightning, heading straight for the heavens. Tian Yunzi smiled faintly, his right hand reaching out into the void. Immediately, the speed of the snake-shaped sword slowed, and a violent struggle and deafening sword cries could be heard. Ling Tianho coldly shouted. A red light appeared between his brows, flashing brightly. It suddenly flew out from his brow, landing in the void. In a flash, it transformed into a giant Kirin beast. The beast was mighty, its hooves pounding the ground, its enormous head staring fiercely at Tian Yunzi. With a roar, it charged forward. At the moment the Kirin beast appeared, a roar also came from the Kirin remnant soul within Wang Lin's soul banner. However, as soon as the remnant soul roared, Wang Lin activated his soul banner, hiding all traces of the soul. Now, the Kirin beast behind Ling Tianho could not sense anything. Venerable Ling Tianho furrowed his brow. At this moment, the sudden halt of the Kirin beast and the snake-shaped sword being held by Tian Yunzi made the full force of the mid-grade immortal summoning art erupt. Strands of 7-colored light poured out from the void in the sky, and at the same time, music, like heavenly harmony, echoed as the clouds crashed and rubbed against each other. Strange illusory shadows suddenly began to swirl in the sky. One of these shadows, standing in the center, wore a golden robe and radiated a vast celestial aura. Though it was an illusory figure, a celestial might spread from it, filling the air. He stood in midair, his gaze descending upon the thousands of disciples of the Great Luo Sword sect on the ground. Without speaking a word, an authoritative voice reverberated slowly through the heavens and earth. I am the eternal illusory form of the immortal realm's guide, immortal lord, here to receive the cultivators from the lower realms. The voice seemed to have been uttered countless times before. After the phantom figure spoke, a large hand pressed down into the empty space, and instantly, the area where the disciples of the great Luo sword sect stood shook. A golden light appeared, sealing the space entirely. This scene stunned all the surrounding cultivators who had come to offer their congratulations. Among them, some great divine ability cultivators even showed expressions of shock. If the immortal realm is already destroyed, how can the guide spell still operate, and the guide immortal lord descend? If these people are really being guided away, where are they being taken? Could they be going to the shattered immortal realm, or to a place no cultivator has ever entered? Countless questions surged in the minds of the onlookers. At the same time, Tian Yunzi's figure became even more mysterious in the hearts of these cultivators. This guide spell, a middle-grade immortal technique, how could it be found by Tian Yunzi on an abandoned cultivation star? There must be something wrong with this. While the cultivators speculated in their hearts, Sword Venerable Ling Tianho's gaze immediately darkened. He coldly said, "Old man Tian Yunzi, I brought my disciples to wish you longevity, yet you disregard your status and directly act against my disciples. What is the meaning of this?" With a wave of his right hand, the serpentine immortal sword swiftly returned to his side from midair. He made no effort to stop it, wanting to see what Tian Yunzi was really up to. Tian Yunzi's expression remained unchanged as he smiled and said, "Let your disciples experience the immortal realm of the past. Wouldn't that be a good thing?" As they spoke, all the disciples of the great Luo sword sect suddenly flew uncontrollably into the air, one by one disappearing into the void in midair. Sword Venerable Ling Tianho's face remained dark, motionless, his cold gaze fixed on Tian Yunzi. It wasn't until the last disciple of the great Luo sword sect disappeared into the void that the strange sight in the sky slowly dissipated, returning to normal. Tian Yunzi looked up at the sky and gently said, "This middle-grade immortal technique, though lacking in offensive power, still allows me to directly take people away after the immortal realm no longer exists. As for where they went, I have no idea." "You!" Sword Venerable Ling Tianho glared at Tian Yunzi, his expression growing even darker. Tian Yunzi looked at him and smiled. "Don't worry, Sword Venerable. In 3 days, your disciples from the great Luo sword sect will return here. At that time, I will borrow a few of them and ask them where they went and what they saw." Sword Venerable Ling Tianho remained silent for a moment, then snorted coldly, no longer speaking. He knew full well that with Tian Yunzi's status, he would never do such a thing in front of so many fellow cultivators. If Tian Yunzi said it would be 3 days, then it would definitely be 3 days. Tian Yunzi's actions were merely for his own embarrassment. At this moment, some of the cultivators around, particularly those with sharp minds, looked up at the sky, deep in thought. Some even secretly mimicked the movements, wearing thoughtful expressions. Wang Lin raised his head, lost in contemplation. To him, the middle-grade immortal technique was incredibly mystical. After seeing it only once, he could not possibly learn it, but it allowed him to understand immortal techniques more deeply. The illusion created by the guide immortal technique clearly wasn't something Tian Yunzi had created. In fact, this technique had existed eternally, only requiring the opening incantations and the right qualifications to use it. Once activated, it could be used anywhere to directly take a person to the immortal realm. After Tian Yunzi completed his spell, he did not announce the end of the lecture, but instead, his eyes glimmered with an odd light as he said slowly, "Besides my 1,000-year lifespan, there is one more thing I wish to ask all fellow cultivators to witness. I, Tian Yunzi, have 7 lineages of disciples, yet only the yellow and purple lineages still lack a disciple bearing the title of the 7 celestial fates. Today, the time has come for one of them from these 2 lineages to receive the title of the 7 celestial fates." Upon hearing this, the gazes of the surrounding cultivators immediately fixed on the disciples of the yellow and purple sects. However, most of the attention was directed towards the yellow sect, with few focusing on the purple sect. After all, it was well known that the purple sect was too weak. The 6 disciples of the yellow sect, 30 years ago, had one disciple ranked third, who received the Seven Celestial Fates title. However, during an expedition in the starry sky, he mysteriously vanished and was never heard from again. At this moment, the 6 disciples of the Yellow Sect remained calm, showing no sign of emotion. The middle-aged woman standing at the back took a step forward and respectfully said to Tian Yunzi, "I forfeit my right." As soon as she said this, others from the Yellow Sect stepped forward one by one, respectfully renouncing their rights. In the end, only 2 remained motionless. Among the remaining 2, Wang Lin only had some impression of one, and that was Xun'er, who had just received a mid-grade immortal artifact from Tian Yunzi's reward. Aside from Xun'er, standing next to him was an elderly man. This man appeared wrinkled and unremarkable, even though he wore a yellow robe. He looked no different from a withered old ape. He was the leader of the yellow lineage, Yunzi. He had once served as one of the 7 children of heavenly destiny for over 800 years, but in the end, his title was taken by the 3rd. However, he never harbored any desire for competition and spent his days in cultivation, living quite leisurely. At this moment, he glanced at Tian Yunzi, stepped forward, and respectfully said, "Master, I too forfeit my claim. Among the yellow lineage's 7 children of heavenly destiny, only second senior brother, who has received the immortal artifact from you, is truly the most suitable." Tian Yunzi cast a meaningful glance at Yunzi. Under that gaze, Yunzi immediately lowered his head in silence. "Xun'er," Tian Yunzi called out sharply. "Disciple is here." Xun'er trembled slightly, hurriedly stepping forward and standing respectfully. "You are the one chosen from the yellow lineage, the 7 children of heavenly destiny. If you can maintain your position for 1,000 years, I will pass on to you a complete set of low-grade immortal arts." The 7 children of heavenly destiny is no small matter. It is a symbol of my Tian Yun sect status, the true title of our direct disciples. Are you ready for this? Tian Yunzi's voice was filled with authority. The other cultivators around were not particularly moved, but Sword Venerable Ling Tianho, on the other hand, curled the corner of his mouth with a slight sneer. He muttered to himself, "7 children of heavenly destiny. Humph." Xun'er dropped to his knees in the void with a thud, bowing deeply towards Tian Yunzi and solemnly saying, "Disciple will remember Master's words." Tian Yunzi nodded, and with a wave of his right hand, he pressed it against his forehead. Immediately, a golden glow rose from his brow. Within the golden light, Tian Yunzi's gaze became extremely bright. After a moment, a yellow crystal flew out from his brow and landed in his palm. This object you should be familiar with. It is the insignia of the 7 children of heavenly destiny. Meditate on it in seclusion for several years, and when you emerge from seclusion, I will give you another life-saving treasure. Xun'er took a deep breath, trying to suppress the excitement within him. Though he had known for some time that he would definitely be the 7 children of heavenly destiny from the yellow lineage, it still felt like a dream to him. In fact, he knew that in the yellow lineage, every cultivator's strength was formidable, and each was adept at hiding their cultivation. Without actual combat, it was impossible to gauge someone's true strength. So, once competition began, Xun'er would have no real chance of victory. Most importantly, the eldest senior brother, Yunzi, was there. Xun'er had been with his master for over 2 years, but by the time he became a disciple, the eldest senior brother was already present. He couldn't even guess how long this eldest senior brother had followed Tian Yunzi. Though this eldest senior brother was usually quite solitary and avoided interacting with others, he had no ambition for the title of 7 children of heavenly destiny. He never even fought for it. Wang Lin quietly observed from the side, his gaze lingering more on Yunzi. However, what truly struck Wang Lin as odd was that after Tian Yunzi took out the yellow crystal, Yunzi's eyes subtly contracted. His usual calm demeanor seemed to shatter for a moment, revealing a trace of fear. But in an instant, his gaze returned to normal, as though nothing had happened. Had Wang Lin not been paying close attention, he would have never noticed this detail. After a long time, Yunzi looked up and glanced at him, his lips curving into a faint smile. This smile was strange, as if it carried a sense of having seen through everything. Next, It is time for the disciples of my Tian Yun sect's violet lineage to receive the 7 children of heavenly destiny titles. Wang Lin, Zhao Xinming, by way are you all ready? Tian Yunzi's gaze fell upon Wang Lin, and he smiled and nodded. 4th senior sister, Zhao Xinming, narrowed her eyes and looked at Wang Lin, speaking softly. 7th brother, if I forfeit again, it would be too easy for you to obtain this title. Let's settle this with a battle, right here and now. Wang Lin's mind flashed back to Yin Daozi's fearful gaze, and his heart skipped a beat. A hint of hesitation appeared in his eyes. Disciple forfeits. Wang Lin took a deep breath and looked towards Tian Yunzi. Tian Yunzi was taken aback. This expression was something Wang Lin had rarely seen from him. Tian Yunzi furrowed his brow, looking at Wang Lin and said in a deep voice, "Why forfeit?" Zhao Xinming's calm expression disappeared as well, replaced by a strange gleam in her eyes. She stared at Wang Lin, remaining silent. Wang Lin's mind was still haunted by Yun Daozi's fearful gaze. After hearing Tian Yunzi's words, he remained silent for a moment before replying. My cultivation is insufficient to contest 4th senior sister for the title. Wang Lin. Tian Yunzi interrupted Wang Lin, giving him a deep, meaningful look. He said in a low voice, I hope you seize this opportunity. My disciple should not be weak or cowardly. Do not let others deceive you or let needless doubts cloud your mind. Remember, everything should be done according to your heart's desire. I will give you half a stick of incense as time. Think carefully. If you still wish to forfeit, I will not persuade you further. Tian Yunzi furrowed his brow, and after finishing his words, his gaze swept over to the leader of the yellow lineage, Yun Daozi, with a flash of coldness in his eyes. Yun Daozi sensed his master's gaze and immediately felt a chill in his heart. He hurriedly lowered his head. Tian Yunzi's words echoed in the ears of the other 6 disciples, all of whom turned their eyes to Wang Lin. There was more than just curiosity in their gazes. There was surprise, even re-evaluation. In their eyes, those who received their master's encouragement were rare. Other than Sun Yun from the purple lineage many years ago, Wang Lin was the second to receive such attention. Half a stick of incense passed slowly. Wang Lin's eyes flashed. He looked at Tian Yunzi and respectfully cupped his hands. I will seize the opportunity, master. A look of relief appeared in Tian Yunzi's eyes, and he nodded. Good. Zhao Ximing looked at Wang Lin and softly said, 7th brother, it's time to begin. With that, she moved, her body dancing like a phoenix, retreating several dozen paces from Wang Lin. At the same time, her slender jade-like hand rose, forming a gesture, pointing forward. Immediately, purple star-like dots of light appeared out of nowhere, swirling around her in a chaotic, unpredictable dance. Wang Lin focused on the star points. On this destiny star, during battles, it seemed that treasures were seldom used, and spells or divine abilities were the main methods of combat. Although Wang Lin had not fought many times, whenever he did, it was always through divine abilities. The swirling star points around Zhao Xinming gathered toward her right index finger as she traced the air. In the blink of an eye, her entire right hand was engulfed in a thick, purple radiance. Even her appearance was altered by the purple glow, giving her an otherworldly look. 7th brother, you have not yet understood my way. Today, I will tell you. My path is the Shadow Demon path. Any divine ability in the world, as long as it doesn't exceed my cultivation level too much, I only need to see it once. While I may not be able to fully perform it, I can imitate it to some extent. This technique is one I created by imitating your demon transformation finger. I call it the purple demon hand. Zhao Ximing explained, her right hand extending forward to strike the air. Instantly, the purple light surrounding her hand shot forward with a sharp whistle, rapidly speeding toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin's gaze flickered. He immediately retreated, his right index finger raised. As his immortal power surged, it reversed course, and a purple spark appeared at the tip of his finger. The moment the spark appeared, a massive demonic aura suddenly erupted, enveloping the surroundings. Is this child truly someone who aligns with my fate path? Tian Yunzi's expression remained calm, though his gaze lingered on Wang Lin's right index finger for a moment. He left me a message long ago. My path is the destiny path, and only by finding someone who aligns with it can I take the third step. Tian Yunzi continued to look at Wang Lin, a trace of melancholy appearing in his eyes. Since meeting him, in these past 30,000 years, I have failed countless times. Many of my disciples have already fallen, and the ones left are few. What I am doing, am I right, or am I wrong? Demon transformation finger, Wang Lin muttered, his expression serious. The purple spark on his index finger suddenly shot forward, colliding with Zhao Xinming's purple demon hand. The purple star points merged into the purple light, and a crackling sound filled the air as the two forces clashed. A strange transformation took place within the collision, shifting rapidly. The change did not last for more than a few moments before it exploded, sending out a purple light ring that unleashed a massive wave of demonic energy. The surrounding area trembled as the power dispersed. The demonic energy released from the light ring was several times stronger than what Wang Lin's demon transformation finger contained. It was clear that something had caused a peculiar transformation, reversing the energy's nature. Zhao Xinming quickly retreated, and with a snap of her fingers, a bead appeared in her hand. A sly look flickered in her eyes as she spoke softly. Absorb. At her command, the demonic energy surrounding her froze, then rapidly swirled toward the bead in her hand. In the blink of an eye, the energy was completely absorbed. The originally flawless white bead turned pitch black, and it seemed to contain vengeful souls, exuding a chilling aura. Seventh brother, I won't compete with you for the title of the 7 children of heavenly destiny, but the demonic power after this mutation must belong to me, Zhao Xinming said with a light smile, holding a pearl. Wang Lin glanced at the pearl and spoke in a deep voice. You created that purple demon hand, surely to force me to use the demon transformation finger, so you could absorb its demonic power, right? Senior sister, if you had told me directly, I might not have minded, but now, if you want that demonic power, it's impossible. As soon as Wang Lin's words left his mouth, the pitch-black demonic aura within the pearl in Zhao Xinming's hand immediately dissipated, as if it had never existed. The once dark pearl rapidly turned pure white. This demonic power wasn't true demonic energy, but rather a mirage created by Wang Lin's reverse cultivation of celestial power. This way, he could manipulate it at will, and with a single thought, he could make it collapse. This reverse celestial energy could not be given to anyone. Otherwise, they could study it and discover the true method of cultivating the demon transformation finger. Wang Lin had promised Situ Nin that these 3 killing moves would never be passed on. Zhao Xinming's expression darkened, her brows furrowing as she looked at the pearl in her hand. With a squeeze, the pearl shattered. She raised her head to look at Wang Lin and softly said, Seventh brother, I only want a trace of your demonic power. If you give it to me, I'll immediately withdraw my claim. Otherwise, Wang Lin looked at Zhao Xinming. There was a slight connection between them, but overall, they had no debts to each other. Upon hearing this, Wang Lin replied calmly, Fourth senior sister, I cannot help you with this. Zhao Xinming looked at Wang Lin, then after a pause, raised her right hand and softly uttered, 9 revolutions, immortal refining art. The moment her words left her lips, a vast golden light immediately erupted from Zhao Xinming's body, howling wildly. At the same time, her face was shrouded in the golden light, giving her an oddly mysterious appearance. Her right hand now seemed as if it were made of solid gold, emitting waves of golden radiance. A stream of golden celestial power slowly began to condense from her right hand, forming a golden vortex that slowly rotated above her palm. First revolution, second revolution, third revolution, fourth revolution, fifth revolution. The golden vortex spun 5 times before suddenly halting and reversing direction. Wang Lin's gaze flickered, and he raised his left hand. The third revolution golden immortal power, which had been contained within his hand, suddenly erupted and gathered in his palm. A vortex of the same size silently appeared on Wang Lin's left hand and slowly began to rotate. First revolution, second revolution, third revolution. Zhao Ximing's eyes flashed with surprise. She had taught Wang Lin the 9 revolutions immortal refining art only a few days ago, yet in such a short time, he had already cultivated the third revolution power. This exceeded her expectations. Seventh brother, third revolution power is useless to me," Zhao Ximing said calmly, her surprise quickly fading. Wang Lin's expression remained unchanged. His celestial power suddenly moved, and one strand flowed into the third revolution golden immortal power. Suddenly, the third revolution power vibrated violently and unexpectedly completed another revolution. "Now it's the fourth revolution," Wang Lin said as another stream of celestial power flew out from his body and madly drilled into his left hand. The fourth revolution golden immortal power turned again. "Now it's the fifth revolution." Wang Lin's expression remained unchanged, but he was enduring immense pain as the golden immortal power in his left hand became increasingly uncontrollable. Yet Wang Lin's composure was beyond Zhao Ximing's imagination, as his experiences on the Vermilion Bird Star were beyond what a disciple of a prestigious sect like Zhao Ximing could ever experience. At this moment, Zhao Ximing saw Wang Lin's calm demeanor, his face composed without a hint of strain. Wang Lin smiled slightly, looking at Zhao Ximing. "Would you like to see my sixth revolution golden immortal power?" Zhao Ximing's expression darkened as she stared at Wang Lin, slowly saying, "Even if you really have the sixth revolution power, you are still no match for me." Wang Lin laughed heartily, slapping his storage pouch. Immediately, a giant demon clan war axe transformed into a streak of black light, flashing out and hovering in the void. At the same time, with a flick of his wrist, the beast-taming ring landed beside him with a thud and transformed into the divine chariot. "With these two, how about we have a battle?"